Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Sameh Abed Iraq, an adult endocrinologist and diabetologist from Iraq. I'm so privileged to be part of the DART team in this meeting and previous meetings. My presentation is Iraq fasting study, extended fasting more than 60 days, a cross-sectional study for patients with diabetes. I have no conflict of interest. Really, we will present a study, we will present a small amount of results of this very large study called Iraq Fasting Diabetes Project, in which we try to revisit all the guidelines and information regarding fasting in patients with diabetes in our vicinity. As you know, patients with diabetes fast during Ramadan and even before and after Ramadan as part of their religious rituals, and this occur even if it was against doctor's advice. This is why DAR Alliance proposed fasting risk stratification or risk calculator to stratify patients with diabetes to low, moderate, and high risk, and advise about fasting accordingly. Our objective here is to evaluate the overall fasting experience for patients with diabetes with different risk categories using the DAR Fasting Ramadan Risk Calculator, and then evaluate the overall fasting experience for patients with diabetes who chose to extend their fasting more than 60 days, including Ramadan. Our research method is somewhat sophisticated and include a lot of research bodies. We included 4,541 patients with diabetes, which were reviewed and had their fasting risk calculator measured during Jumadi Thani and Rajab 1444, which is winter 2022, followed till the end of Dhul Qa'dah 1442, which correspond to spring 2023. This research and this project was done in one governmental center in the Qar and the 3 private endocrine and diabetes centers. We enrolled any patients with diabetes with any type of diabetes which was older than 14 days old. Every 2 months, the patients had to visit our center and our centers, and the investigation done accordingly, like hemoglobin A1C, in each 3 to 4 months. Out of these 4,541 patients, we had 1,931, which correspond to 42% of patients with diabetes start fasting for different durations. The results. As you can see, in this slide, we have this busy slide, we have a 28% of our cohort in the low risk category, a 32% in the moderate risk category, and 40% in the high risk category. There were 58% of our cohort chose not to fast, as you can see in the bottom of the slide. 44% of patients from the low risk, which is not expected, 56% of patients from moderate risk, which is usual, and 68% of patients from the high risk category, which is expected. This may give a clue about the shortage of our assessment tool regarding risk stratification. Our patients who fasted do it for different duration, from 1 day to 147 days, which will be discussed thoroughly in the next slides. As you can see from this slide, we show only the patients, the distribution of patients who fasted, which were 1,931. Starting from below, going up, the first 3 bars are from patients with diabetes in different categories who chose to fast even more than 60 days, up to 147 days, during Rajab, Sha'ban, and Ramadan, and part of Shawwal of 1444. The 4th and 5th category, the 4th and 5th bars, are from patients with diabetes who fasted Ramadan and added days, but less than 60 days. The uppermost bars are from patients with diabetes who fasted less than 30 days. Now, let's take the lowermost three and concentrate on them. In this slide, we took the lowermost bars, which represent those who fasted more than 60 days, from different risk categories. They include 109 patients from low risk and 31% from moderate risk, and they were 75 patients and 54 patients from the high risk, constituting about a quarter of our cohort. Again, those who were advised not to fast by us did complete more than their recommended 30 days of Ramadan fasting, and some completed up to 147 days. So we must study this group thoroughly by comparing them to those who fasted less than 60 days, and they completed the 30 days of their fasting. As you can see, in this slide, we summarize our results according to the risk group. The uppermost group, the uppermost table represent the 238 patients who fasted more than 60 days, and the lowermost table for those who fasted Ramadan and completed less than 60 days, which constitute 1,333 patients. In order to start studying these cohorts, we have certain parameters to be set, keeping in mind that we have no rule in pushing our patients to fast or not to fast. Only we advise them, and then we recommend them to fast or not to fast. We give advice only. As you can see, our cohort of patients with diabetes who fasted more than 60 days and those who fasted less than 60 days are matched for sex, age, BMI, hemoglobin A1C, and estimated GFR. And later on, in the next slide, you can see it was matched for the risk category. Our cohort is somewhat an old cohort, and the age mean was around 50. Additionally, the duration of diabetes was higher for those who with extended fasting by about 1 year. You can see it is 9 versus 8 years. From this slide, you can see the distribution of risk categories is nearly similar, and about 23% of our cohort with extended fasting are in the high risk category, and 25% of those with fasting less than 60 days are from the high risk category. The mean risk score for patients with extended fasting was 4 ±3, while it was similar for those with fasting Ramadan but less than 60 days. Regarding the fasting days, the extended fasting group did fast 82 ±17 with minimum of 60 and maximum of 14.7, while the second group fasted 35 ±8 with minimum of 30 and maximum of 59. In order to compare our groups, we excluded patients with type 1 diabetes and those patients with gestational diabetes, because the patients from the extended fasting group are all from the type 2 diabetes, and all this was by accident. That's why we excluded 47 patients. That's why in the next comparison, we compared 238 patients versus 1,286 patients from the group 2. In this group, this is the mean, the marginal means of the hemoglobin A1C. We use the repeated measure statistics, which is sophisticated statistics, to measure the hemoglobin A1C changes before and during and after Shawwal, and it was significant change. As you can see, for the red line, it is somewhat 8 and still 8, while for the Ramadan only, and for the less than 60, it was around 8. You can imagine that even with the extended fasting, we didn't have the optimal control of our diabetes. Even they show some decline in their hemoglobin A1C, many patients didn't have their optimal control. And this is to be discussed by our largest study, and the causes are to be discussed thoroughly later. Estimated marginal mean for body weight and BMI. The changes are not significant. For those with extended fasting, we have a reduction in BMI, but this reduction was not significant. Even you can see, I augmented the effect by decreasing the lines, by increasing the line spacing, but this is not significant change. It is still in the 28, and our cohorts, both cohorts, are somewhat in the overweight and obese cohort, and there is no change for the extended fasting or the fasting per se on the body weight in this cohort only. Let's see the patients with total cholesterol. We take these figures and this repeated measure statistics. The figure compare only 138 patients from the extended fasting group and compared to 428 patients from Ramadan group. Those patients who were on statin, a 20 milligram rosuvastatin only, because we need to see the effect with similar drug effect. There was similar pattern was found for patients on 10 milligram rosuvastatin, 20 milligram, and 40 milligram atorvastatin. And unfortunately, in our cohorts, we don't have any patients on 40 milligram rosuvastatin. That's why we compared 138 to 428 patients from the Ramadan group. And you can see the effect of fasting of any kind is marvelous on total cholesterol. This is the estimated marginal mean for triglycerides, and this is similar. The story is similar regarding total cholesterol and triglycerides. There is a marked reduction, and this reduction is significant for those patients with extended fasting. And it is marvelously seen here that many patients had their triglycerides decrease, while the effect of we don't know whether it is the effect of fasting or whether it's the effect of their drugs. Keeping in mind that any patients come to our centers are on statin. They must be on statin. That's why we don't have any patients in this study and in this project which visited our centers are on no statin. All of them are on statin. Regarding the hypoglycemia, this table represents the amount of the attacks of hypoglycemia. We have 37 attacks of hypoglycemia happened for 24 patients with diabetes in the extended group, while we have 207 attacks of hypoglycemia occurred for 168 patients, and this distributed all over. And you can see that Ramadan had the highest attacks, and this may be due to the fact that the Ramadan obligation for fasting daily is more than the elective fasting in the other days. In this slide, we concentrate that these are the hypoglycemia which break the fast, while we have hypoglycemic reading which did not cause breaking of fasting in 12 times, while compared to 118 for those with fasting Ramadan but less than 60 days. This didn't break their fast. For hyperglycemia, in this slide, in the uppermost of the slide, we have for patients with breaking their fast, we have 44 attacks of hyperglycemia for 35 patients with diabetes distributed according to months, while those who fasted Ramadan but less than 60 days, it is 117 for 92 patients with diabetes. Hyperglycemia reading, which did not cause breaking the fast, was seen in 29 times in the extended group compared to about 276 in the ordinary group. This is our last slide regarding the results. In conclusion, we addressed the shortage of the fasting risk calculator to stratify fasting risk in this large cohort of patients with diabetes. About 32% of patients with diabetes who were considered as high-risk category achieved fasting. Of those, about 23% fasted more than 60 days. That's to say, the fasting risk calculator is not suitable for patients with diabetes who want to fast more than 60 days. Additionally, although fasting more than 60 days produced significant change in hemoglobin A1C and lipid profile, its effects is suboptimal and need to be addressed by further evaluation and further dig-up. Prolonged fasting did not affect BMI reduction in either groups. Finally, I would like to see that further research is needed to clarify the effect of extended non-intermittent daily fasting. We need further studies, and that will be done in the next few months, and we expect our results to be published in the next few months. Lastly, I'm so grateful to my team, Imad Hatem Tahir, Mahmoud Timimi, ضياء الوائلي, Adil Ghassab Muhammad, for their marvelous contribution in this study. Thank you very much.